data to grow till around 150 terabyte in a year or so. So, and apart from Cassandra, I have also been working on HBase side of it. Not much, not as much as I have been working Cassandra, but HBase, like we did a POC and we also have a cluster for HBase as well in our infrastructure. And that's primarily about what I have been working on. And regarding the trainings, so I have been associated with the trainings from like last 6 months or so. So I have been taking Cassandra trainings and big data trainings as well. So most of the times I have been doing it online, the same fashion that we have been doing right now. So yeah, this is much about me. So probably I'll just take a minute and we'll just go over everybody to just give their introduction. Okay, so I hope everybody can actually is unmuted, because I have just unmuted everybody. So please go ahead. So I'll just start with the names. So probably you guys can just carry on. So the first name that comes in my list is Raj Kumar. Hey Raj, if you can hear me, can you please start with your introduction? So I mean, why I want to do is do this round of introduction is I just want to know, I mean, what kind of background you guys belong to, so that when we actually start the classes and all, so I'll have an idea. So to I mean, what kind of background you have, so I can cover the topics in the accordingly. So, and do let me know what all expectation you have out of this course, so that in case you want me to cover something specifically in more detail, I will be covering that as well. Okay. So please, anybody, I mean, just like anybody who has who wants to start first can go ahead.
I can start, Kunal. This is Raj Kumar.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a systems architect. I'm into the Amazon, the cloud, and also I'm doing some project with Hadoop. I did a training with the Hadoop training with Ravi. So I just I saw a note from Satish about Cassandra. I just want to know about the course contents, etc. So if I am interested, then I will look forward to see more. It depends on what you are covering. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, that's good to know about you. Okay, so anybody else who wanna start?
Hey, this is Srinivasan. Yeah, I mean, I again took course with Ravi on the Hadoop admin and development course, and currently in our project we are using Cassandra, so I'm trying to get into it.
So I suppose you already have some work like hands-on on Cassandra. Is that the way, or when
No,
you are starting fresh?
I think it's I'm looking into getting into it. I'm not. I know that we have that type project in our group, so I'm trying to learn and get into it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So who's gonna go ahead with the introduction now? So I'll just take the names, so that will be easy. We'll go just one over one. Rajkumar.
I covered Kunal.
Okay, actually there were two Raj. Okay, Raja Reddy.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm working with environment team like with IBM middleware, WebSphere, and MQ. I'm planning to switch career by learning big data. I took Hadoop training from Ravi through Satish. So I got an email from him regarding Cassandra. I'm interested to learn these new technologies and try to get into those.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. Ravi Bengala, did you wanna go ahead with the introduction? Okay, who else? Shiva Prasad, are you there? Anybody, I mean, like, not necessarily the name I'm taking, anybody who wants to go ahead with the introduction, please feel free to do so.
Hey, this is Shiva. In current project, like we are using a Cassandra, I haven't worked on that, but I just want to get details and depend on the topics. Maybe I would continue the class. So
Okay, that's cool. That is interesting. Yep. Sure. I think we covered pretty much. Okay, go ahead. Who's that? Anybody wants to? I heard some
Hi,
noise
this
here.
is
Yeah.
Ravi.
Hey, Ravi. Yeah.
Yeah, I work on mainframes for calls, and I took big data Hadoop training from Ravi, and I received this email from Satish. So want to know what is Cassandra and what are the topics you cover. That's about it.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So okay, that's I think we have covered pretty much all of you guys. So there are still one or two left. In case you want to go ahead, please just interrupt me, and we will stop for a minute or so. Okay, so like what I'll do now is I'll put you guys on mute. Okay, so then I'll just continue with the session. So like I'll just cover in brief the topics that we will be covering today, and as well as I mean I'll go through the course structure in detail also, so that you guys can understand what all things we will be covering, and accordingly you can make your choices. Okay, so I'll just mute you guys. Okay. So everybody is on mute now. So in case you have any question, there is a tab wherein you can ask me the questions and all. Okay, so just ping me or anything. I'll just stop by to answer your questions. Okay. So I just wanted to make this session interactive. So it has to be both way. So in case you have any questions, or in case you want me to just elaborate on any point in any time in the session, just interrupt me, and we will take time to elaborate, or I'll take time to answer your doubts. Okay, so everybody can see my screen. Just anybody can confirm by pinging me or something. Okay, I've got enough confirmations. Okay, so we will be starting with Cassandra overview. So what we will be doing today is I will be basically explaining the use cases why NoSQL world is made for. So I'll explain why we are moving out of RDBMS and moving towards NoSQL environments. We'll discuss about the issues that we have with the RDBMS systems, why RDBMS systems are not scaling up to the needs that we have, and what are those needs we're talking about. And we'll take some use cases wherein Cassandra fits well, and we'll also talk about use cases where we shouldn't be using Cassandra. So what I think is, from my point of view, Cassandra and RDBMS, they have their own space of working. So it's not like that Cassandra will replace RDBMS entirely. Why I'm saying so, because there are certain applications which still require the consistency and the locking mechanism, transaction control of RDBMS that we still don't have in NoSQL world. So I won't say like we can replace RDBMS entirely with Cassandra, because I think both can coexist and co-work in in any infrastructure, in any big data project. Okay. So before jumping on to today's course, I would like to take some time to go through the course structure. So this is the course structure. On a high level, I have divided the course structure into 7 logical modules. These are just logical modules, probably depending on the time they need. I mean, each of the modules, suppose one module may take more than one classes or more than one sessions. Even like it can, in sometimes it can take 2 or 3 sessions as well. Okay. So the first module that we'll have is Cassandra introduction. So in this module, what will we will basically go through the NoSQL use cases. So why we are moving away from RDBMS to NoSQL. We'll talk about different features of Cassandra, like what are the different features that are different from other systems. Okay, we'll talk about in detail. We'll try to understand how those features basically impact the various components of a storage system, like data availability, consistency, partition tolerance. So we'll talk about this in detail about Cassandra. And at the end of module 1 session, I'll give you a little, I'll show you how to interact with Cassandra. So what I'll do is I'll just, I have some code set up. I'll have some code set up on my machine just to give you an overview. How do we interact with Cassandra? What all APIs we use to interact with Cassandra will cover after module 1. Because I just wanted to give a feeling of, Cassandra interactions. So what all things, we do in Cassandra on a basic level, I just want to give you. Probably you won't be able to understand anything at that point in time, but I just wanted to take it up so that you guys can have a look. In module 2, we will be covering Cassandra data model. So as you know, in RDBMS we have tables, columns, indexes, and all this stuff, right? So similarly, in Cassandra side, we have something like key space, which is analogous to database. We have column families, we have some indexes. So we'll talk about each and every component of data model in detail, and we'll try to understand what exactly they map to RDBMS world. So the best way to learn Cassandra is, I would say, in my opinion, to compare the Cassandra world with RDBMS world. Because what I think is everybody till now has been working on RDBMS, and if you build an analogy between RDBMS and Cassandra, it gets very easy to learn, and it gives you much context also. So why we are doing this in Cassandra? You can relate that thing to RDBMS. So we'll try to relate it to RDBMS as much as we can in the entire session, in the entire training, so that you guys have a clear understanding. In module 3, I will be covering Cassandra architecture in detail. So that is I think the most important module like in the training, because it'll form the basics. So we will learn about how Cassandra handles write request. We'll learn about how Cassandra handles read request, because these are very important, right? Read and write request. So since we all of us, we know Cassandra is very fast at writing and reading. So why it is so fast? What makes it so different? So different from RDBMS? How Cassandra processes updates? How Cassandra processes reads and writes? So we'll talk about it in Cassandra architecture in detail. And then in module 4, we'll have an application walkthrough. So what I'll do is I'll create a sample application. Probably we'll just take an example of any industry that you guys can understand. I don't want to waste much time in learning about the industry, so we'll use a common industry that we might have been using, a common application that you might have been using in your day-to-day life. And then we'll try to build on that. We'll go through data modeling in RDBMS, and then we'll do the data modeling in Cassandra. We'll compare how the data modeling in Cassandra differs from RDBMS world. And then after data modeling, we'll build some code to insert the data into those like application objects, and then we'll see how to retrieve the information as well. Okay, so that will be great. I think application walkthrough, I'll show you some code and all. It will be kind of hands-on for you. So probably at the end of module 4, I'll give you an exercise wherein you can go home and implement the code that I'll be walking through, and you guys can just build an application using that code base as the bottom line. Okay, so in module 5, we'll talk about something like maintenance monitoring and performance tuning. So in day-to-day life in Cassandra, like what kind of maintenance we do, how do we monitor the cluster, and when you set up a cluster or when you have been using a cluster, so what are the different aspects you look into for basically getting the best performance out of it. Okay, so we'll talk about each component in detail. I will walk you through some of the tools that we can use, some open source tools I'll walk you through. We have some JMX bindings and all that stuff in Cassandra, and there are the concept of MBeans available. It provides the hooks to basically wherein we can connect and get the information. We can watch what's happening on Cassandra cluster live using those open source tools. So I'll walk you through those tools. We will go through JMX, JConsole, everything in this lecture. And then in module 6, very important, we will talk about integration of Hadoop and Cassandra. So in one of our project, we integrated Cassandra on top of a Hadoop cluster. So what was the benefit we were looking out of it was we wanted to using the capability of an OLTP system like Cassandra. On top of that, we wanted to use OLAP also. So since you guys will be knowing Cassandra is made for OLTP, a kind of a transaction system, and Hadoop is for like more of OLAP system, online analytical processing. So what we do is Cassandra basically gets a read and writes from the application. It writes the data in some format in Cassandra file system, and then we basically integrate Cassandra file system in such a way. In Hadoop, we can basically use Pig and Hive to interact with Cassandra to basically submit MapReduce jobs on Cassandra itself. So what's the benefit we get? So typically you must have seen what happens in case of our day-to-day life. I mean the infrastructure that we may have set up. So we have a live cluster, live OLTP system. Okay, something like RDBMS, something like Oracle or MySQL. So we'll have to take some time wherein we copy the data from that OLTP system to one of our OLAP systems. So we will have to physically move the data from RDBMS to Hadoop or any OLAP system that we might be using, right? So, but when you integrate Cassandra and Hadoop, we don't have to do that movement like anytime. We already have the data on Hadoop cluster. We can just start doing the processing. Okay. So from ETL perspective, so we call this stage as ETL, extract, transform, and load. So in this extract part is already gone. We don't have to extract the data because the data is already available in Hadoop. So it is only reduced to TL. We can just transform it and then load it. So this extract path saves a lot of time for us because I mean there are many disk IOs involved in this. So yeah, I mean it's a great I think project to work on integration of Cassandra and Hadoop and utilizing it for the best capabilities for big data. Then the module 7 will go through something called SQL, which is nothing but Cassandra query language. So Cassandra provides you out of the box, a utility to connect to Cassandra and use it as if you're using an RDBMS system. It's not entirely like SQL in RDBMS. I mean, it gives you the same feeling. So the guys or like resources coming from RDBMS background, they feel it very easy. They feel it very comfortable with SQL instead of using the Hector APIs or the thrift calls that we have in Cassandra. So probably will have one more addition of modules somewhere in between wherein we talk about the different APIs available for Cassandra. We have different APIs. So the first thing is Cassandra provides a thrift interface. So on top of it, different companies or different organizations, they have built their own APIs. So I think one of the most important or mostly used API is Hector API. So which has its own thrift bindings in the background. So we can just call Hector. I mean there are some utilities available in Hector to connect to cluster, to get the details, to load the data. So mostly we will be using Hector to just give you an example how do we load and read data. I will be using Hector, and also I'll give you an overview of other APIs also that are available. There are certain APIs which are based on SQL. They are not based on thrift. They are not. They don't connect to thrift and all. They just connect to SQL, and you can just fire the SQL queries through those APIs. You don't have to learn the API and all. Just have to learn how to submit the request and how to get the results. That's it. So the learning curve gets very easy in that case, and moreover, Cassandra is moving away from thrift kind of infrastructure to a SQL kind of infrastructure, so that people can feel they can relate it with RDBMS. That's why they are moving away from thrift kind of interfaces to an interface like SQL. Okay. So this was about cost structure in detail. So I wanted to take some time to cover it. I think you guys might be having a good idea about it. So I have a question from Raja Reddy. Do you cover installing Cassandra software setup on your machine? Yes, definitely. I will be covering that in detail. So whenever I'll be giving you application walkthrough in that, I will install the Cassandra software. It's very easy to install it. The only thing the only problem is, or not a problem, the only thing you have to learn is how to set up a cluster, how to connect different nodes, in the machine, and how to connect, how to connect them together in a form of a cluster. The single standalone node is very easy, I would say, but connecting them in cluster and managing them is the most important part. So what I'll try to do is, if possible, I'll try to set up 3 different installations of Cassandra in the same system. So I'll try to act as if we have 3 nodes and we can form a cluster of those 3 nodes, and then we'll try to understand how it goes. So I'll try to set it up. So I think it's possible. I have done it in the past. I'll try to do it again, and then we can just work on a real cluster. It won't have that performance capabilities of 3 nodes, but since I'll be using 1 node and I'll just be using 2 virtual nodes or so. But yeah, but it will give you a feel of managing the cluster and all. Okay. So any other questions, any other topics that you guys want me to include, or you know, anything specific to the core structure? Please go ahead and ask a question. I'll just take a half-minute stop to wait for your questions. Okay, no questions. So I'll just go ahead with the things that I have, you know, prepared for today. So what we will be doing is, so now we will be discussing about our day-to-day interactions on internet. So since you guys know our online time, our time that we spend on internet has increased a lot. Our online activity has increased a lot. So I just wanted to discuss a few use cases depending on that only. So let's take an example of Twitter. So what I'm trying to do is I want to give you a few examples wherein RDBMS cannot basically answer the questions that we have, or it cannot basically scale up to the needs that we will be talking about in a couple of slides. So the first example is Twitter. So what we do in Twitter, I mean, everybody might be knowing about Twitter. So Twitter is the place where you go and share a message with your friends. You can follow the celebrities like Angelina Jolie, or you can just retweet what they might be tweeting on internet. Okay, so this is how you do it. And as you know, Twitter has around 450. Okay, I have a question from Pradeep. So what I understand, data is being stored on clusters. It is going to be pulled into Cassandra to have analytics done on the stored data. Is my understanding right? No, I would say no. Cassandra is not an OLAP system. So I mean, for the analytics part, so what you have to do is you have to, you know, basically fire some random queries. You basically decide your queries on the fly and you fire it on Cassandra. So, but Cassandra is not meant for analytics. It is meant for an OLTP system. It can go online with your real product. So in case of Twitter, they are using it, you know, real time integrated with the site. So when you tweet anything, it goes to Cassandra. When you access anything, it comes from Cassandra. So this is a kind of an OLTP system. It can be used as an OLAP to some extent, but in that case, if you know about your queries, what all queries you're going to fire on your system, then you can use it as an OLAP, but a very narrow window, or I would say a narrow use case for an OLAP system for Cassandra. So Cassandra is primarily into OLTP space. Okay, so what we can do is we load the data in Cassandra. We have certain APIs. We have to load the data. So your application. Okay, I have few questions. Just let me take some time out to answer those. Okay, does Cassandra? Okay, so just a minute. So Pradeep has a following question. So Cassandra data is stored on clusters. Yes. So what we can do is we can form a cluster out of various nodes in Cassandra, and Cassandra has its own capabilities to replicate the data, access the data, and store the data. I mean everything. So Cassandra does it internally, take care of most of the things internally. We'll talk about like certain things in today's session as well. So what we do is it is an elastically scalable system. So you can add as many nodes as you want. You can. I mean, if you have 100 nodes, that's fine. If you have 1,000 nodes, that's also fine. So it just scales elastically depending on your needs. Okay. So this is how Cassandra is made for. So I hope Pradeep, I answered your question. In case you still have doubts, please feel free to ask. I have a couple of more questions to go ahead with. So Ravi has a question: does Cassandra have its own file system, or it uses SDFS file system? You are right. So Cassandra have its own file system. So Cassandra doesn't use SDFS. So what we have is we have something called as Cassandra file system at the back end. So it has something called as SS tables and all the stuff that we will be talking about in detail. But yes, it is different from SDFS, and it has its own